GDPR is the most infamous privacy policy in the world, and even 4 years since its implementation in 2018, GDPR certification is still challenged for organizations at large. And that's understandable, because even though it began as an EU-only legislation, its impact is truly global, given that any cloud-hosted company located anywhere in the world must comply with GDPR if it wants to do business with the 500 million potential customers that live in the European Union. So in this video, we cover everything you need to know, from the basics of GDPR to why it's important to how to achieve GDPR certification. Here's the basics of GDPR certification. GDPR was introduced in 2016 and at its core addresses and enhances an individual's control and rights over their personal data. That's GDPR. Now, GDPR certification enables companies to demonstrate to authorities that they've undertaken all the necessary technical and organizational measures to meet this core goal. Now, there's something important to understand about GDPR certification. At an EU level, the body that's responsible for GDPR's application, EDPB, hasn't actually approved a unifying GDPR certificate or a European data protection seal. This may make it seem like you could possibly get away without being GDPR compliant, but don't go thinking that. Article 42 specifies that a certification shall be issued by certification bodies or by the competent supervisory authority on the basis of criteria approved by that competent supervisory authority. So you can get GDPR certified, and some of the approved accreditation bodies are Europrise, Trustee, Cyber Essentials, and ISO 27001 ISMS, which we've already covered in a previous video. These organizations help cloud-hosted companies just like yours demonstrate that they have their GDPR-related affairs in order. But what happens if you don't have your affairs in order? Well, that neatly brings us on as to why GDPR certification is so important. As with any compliance, companies typically have two incentives that drive them to get compliant. Some of these incentives are carrots, and some of these incentives are sticks. And let me tell you, GDPR has a pretty big fucking stick. GDPR fines are categorized into two tiers, depending on the nature and severity of the violation. Tier 1 results in fines of up to 2% of your annual revenue, or 10 million euros, whichever is higher. Tier 2 violations go up to 4% of your annual revenue, or 20 million euros, again, whichever is higher. So there's potentials for these fines to get really expensive. Just how expensive, you may ask? Let's put it this way. There's been approximately 1,500 GDPR fines that have been issued since 2018. And if you took just the 5 biggest fines in the past 2 years, you're looking at $1.8 billion being paid out. That being said, the carrot might be even more enticing. Customer retention is a major driving metric for growth, and customers simply don't want to buy from companies that misuse their data. So GDPR certification helps you protect your greatest asset, customer trust. Additionally, being compliant with GDPR also ensures you're protected from things that aren't in your control, like data loss due to things like natural disasters or internal threats. So, how does a company achieve GDPR certification? Assuming you've made this far in the video, you have one big question to ask. How? To help you along with this, we've created 2 resources. A GDPR checklist, which you'll find in the description below, that will give you a step-by-step guide into getting GDPR compliant in 2023. And also the next 3 minutes of this video, where we're going to walk you through what you'll need to do. Preparation is the first step of every battle, and that's true for GDPR as well. Create a product plan, ready the right people, and determine what it is that you're going to have to tackle. A personal data policy is next. All companies manage data differently, so it's important you draft a policy for yours, train your staff, appoint a DPO, and set up the right policies. Third up is creating a list of what's called as processing activities. Outline the activities you conduct, create a data flow map to identify risks, and ensure you keep records for this as per Article 30. Fourth, we get to the most well-known impact of GDPR, cookie consent forms. Before storing any data from your visitors or data subjects, as they're called, you want to present the request so your subjects know how the data will be used, how long it will remain for, and how they can opt out at a later date if they choose. DPIA implementation, or Data Protection Impact Assessment, is the 5th step. Your Data Protection Officer, or DPO, will list out the processes you're following and create a report on how these processes could impact the privacy of individuals you're collecting this data from. The 6th and 7th step involves ensuring any data you send outside the EU is GDPR compliant, as are all your third-party contracts that involve personal data processing. 8th and second last is taking steps to secure any personal data you're collecting. An example would be the use of encryption or pseudonyms to mask the data where appropriate. The last step is preparing for the worst, a data breach. You'll need to set up processes for detecting, responding, and notifying concerned individuals and authorities in the event of a data leak. Even as a summary, these 9 steps seem daunting, and you wouldn't be the only one to feel so. But there is good news. Traditional GDPR certification involves manual work, policy creation, repeated human involvement that often leads to errors. But what if there was a way to get around that? And what if that way was faster, more efficient, and inexpensive? All of this and more is possible because of compliance automation with Sprinto. Find out how companies just like yours save up to 80% of their time and effort using Sprinto to get GDPR compliant by visiting sprinto.com or clicking the link in the description today. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. We'll get back to you as soon as possible.